All right, it's after 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody to the monthly meeting of the Board of Appeals on Zoning. And first off, I'd request a roll call.
George Bush,
Here.
Jack Nash,
Present.
Bruce Gale,
Here.
David Helpap,
Here.
Matthew Weideman.
Here.
Have a seat. Ernie Ahmad. Edno Jones Webb. And Charles Sproul.
Okay. This board, by the way, is composed of 6 private citizens appointed by the city council. And basically, the function of the board is to provide zoning flexibility. This means the action of this board can be either, well, an interpretation, which involves an interpretation of the zoning code text, or a zoning district boundary, or a variance, which is what's before us tonight, a request for a variance, which is an appeal to vary from the strict application of the zoning code. The meeting's tape recorded. It's important that only one person speak at a time and that the audience observe respect for the speaker. When the appeal in which you are interested is called, please come forward to the podium and allow the board a moment to review the material while you give your name and address to the secretary. After the appellant's presentation, and that's the person, or that's the party requesting the variance, after the appellant makes the presentation, anybody interested in the appeal may come forward, give his or her name and address to the secretary. And again, please make your comments brief and to the point. And all questions and remarks should be made to the board, not to each other. We'll discuss it. We operate on a motion system. We operate by motion and a vote. You need 2/3 of the board, which is 4 members, in favor to prevail. That is, the appellant does. Well, and the appellant will speak first, and I will call for support from other people in support of the appeal for the variance, and then opposition, if any. We'll go in that order. And we'll go ahead and call the case.
Okay, under new business, we have case number 14-0048. Request for a variance from the family definition of 3 non-related individuals as stated in section 153.021.
All right. And Mr. Stemple?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Zoning Board. If I might, just to help in the process of keeping track of the speakers, we could pass around a sign-up sheet to speak. That way we can keep track of the names and addresses of those that are present. Yes, please. I'd like to take just a few minutes to review some items with the board. We have had a great deal of comment from the public, mostly via telephone. We also did receive a petition which was signed by, I believe, approximately 35 people. We have provided that petition to the board at your table, along with a map which shows the location of where those signatures came from in proximity to the property in question here tonight.
Let me just interrupt.
Yes, sir.
Give us your name and your position and your business address, please.
My name is John Stumple. I'm the Chief Inspector for the city.
Okay.
The request tonight comes from St. Mary's of Michigan, who wishes to acquire the single-family home at 129 South Granger. They're proposing to use the home for the purposes of housing third and fourth year medical students receiving training via the Central Michigan University School of Medicine, currently being established in the city of Saginaw. I've spoken with several residents who have both voiced their concerns to me and also those that have supported the request. However, many of those that have concerns with the request have not contacted myself or Mr. Crowfoot with any questions related to this request. So for the benefit of those present tonight, I'd like to take a few minutes just to offer some guidance to the board and those present in the audience. The dominating theme which is generating the concerns that I have heard is that this request is a rezoning. It is not a rezoning. Rezoning would eliminate all of the rules that go along with the R1 district. This does not do that. All of the provisions of the R1 district will remain in effect regardless of the decision made here tonight for this property and all others in the Heritage Square neighborhood, with the exception of the definition of family as it relates only to this property. The current definition allows 3 unrelated persons to live in this dwelling. The request is to allow 5 unrelated persons to live in the dwelling. There's also concern that the home could be sold by St. Mary's at a later date to an undesirable landlord or used for housing ex-offenders through the State of Michigan Transitional Housing Program. There's also concern that this sets a precedence for future requests by other parties at other locations. I can understand why a neighboring resident would have these concerns, and I applaud their efforts to protect their neighborhood. It's what we've worked for the last 20 years, to get neighborhood people to care about where they live and take action when they think something's wrong. I too would have the same concerns without having certain safeguards in place. The Saginaw zoning code states that the ZBA may, when acting favorably on any appeal in connection with a request for a variance, may attach any conditions to its approval which it finds necessary. That's section 153.624. When making a decision regarding this matter, please consider the exact nature of the request. St. Mary's of Michigan is the proposed owner and operator of the facility. Requires a condition of approval that St. Mary's of Michigan shall remain the owner in order for the variance to remain in effect, and that the variance is not transferable without the approval of the ZBA. The housing is for medical students who are training at St. Mary's or Covenant Hospital and are enrolled through CMU School of Medicine. Again, make this a condition of approval. The Zoning Board of Appeals is required to provide a basis for the approval of a variance from the strict application of the text of the code. This is the point at which the board should establish the uniqueness of their request. This home was designed as a single-family dwelling. It is 4,350 square feet and has 7 bedrooms. It is very large, which sets it apart and makes it unique in the city of Saginaw. Are there others that fall into this category? Yes, but the vast majority do not. It is this uniqueness that establishes the basis for practical difficulty and further provides that basis for denial of other requests which do not have the same unique characteristics of this home. Additionally, it is important to note that this structure could be used as an adult foster care home, housing the owners along with up to 6 unrelated adults as a permitted use without any approvals from the city whatsoever. Certainly a necessary use, but likely a more intense use than what is being proposed by St. Mary's of Michigan. In my professional opinion, this request and its approval, along with the appropriate conditions, would accomplish the following. would provide continued occupancy of this landmark home versus a likely long vacancy during a period of time in which it is offered for sale as a single-family home. Vacant homes, as you know, often fall subject to vandalism very quickly after the vacancy occurs. It will be owned and operated by an institutional organization which has a long history of investment in the city of Saginaw and a proven track record in the maintenance of its properties, always far exceeding the minimum standards required by our codes. Even when St. Mary's was providing funding to NRS to purchase homes in the neighborhood around the hospital, these properties were always improved and maintained. I've never in my 20 years at the city sent a violation notice to St. Mary's Hospital. Continued maintenance and improvements to the home will be more likely to continue. As many of you know, maintenance of a home such as this requires a great deal of resources to do it right. Approving this small change would safeguard against the establishment of a more intense use or occupancy by some other unknown resident, which may or may not be a good neighbor. Appreciate your time and thoughtful consideration of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Stemple?
I heard you say, now, if Mr. Garber was to give this to St. Mary's, they could put a nursing home with 6 adults?
Saying
Seniors?
that the zoning code as a permitted use in an R1 district allows an adult foster care home
Right.
as a permitted use without a variance, without any
okay.
approvals by anyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? For Mr. Stemple? Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else here to speak in support of this request for the variance? If so, please approach the podium and give your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Charlie Thompson, Manager of Facility Engineering for St. Mary's of Michigan. Address is 800 South Washington. I came tonight to speak on this project. What we have fortunately come to Saginaw is a CMU med school that is in line with Covenant and St. Mary's. And to have something like that in this town, we need plenty of resources, and one of those is places to put students. Fortunately, this opportunity came up where we could put 3 students into this house. With the size of the house, we determined that 5 would be nice. The 5 students, the intention would be that they'd be female students, follow through a scholarship program, be awarded housing under St. Mary's. St. Mary's would have a board set up that would oversee the house. The students follow along with their program. Everything that has to do with the house as far as upkeep would fall under my guidance as facility manager, and the upkeep is under my resources, which is pretty large with St. Mary's. Like John said earlier, we do not have any issues with the city as far as complaints or zoning violations, any letters like that. Our intention here is simply to house students that we want to become doctors and be part of our community, stay with us, and grow with us. Like as I mentioned before, we want to take it from the current 3 to 5 students, just to the appropriate size of the house to fill it up a little bit more. Thank you.
Any questions? Anyone else who wishes to speak at
In
this
favor?
time?
Not surprisingly. My name's Dick Garber, and I live at the resident in question. I was not aware that there would be any issue with the neighbors until 3 days ago when I was told there was some unrest in the neighborhood. And I found that difficult to comprehend initially. And I spoke to Karen, and she directed me to the Facebook page that the Heritage Square uses. And I read some of the comments, and it, quite frankly, bothered me a great deal. I work in the city of Saginaw. I moved back to the city of Saginaw. I've moved businesses back to the city of Saginaw. I've been pretty committed to the city of Saginaw. And I love the house at Granger that's in question. I was a visitor in the Thurin home 10 years before I bought it, maybe not 10, maybe 6, maybe 8 years previous. And when I found out that it was on the market, I was looking at other houses, none in the city. The realtor told me about that home, and I said, I love that house. And I bought the home. I spent as much money refurbishing the home as I did when I paid for it. And I had intended to live there for a long, long time. I've been there about 7.5 years. My life has changed. My children are out of the nest. The home is closer to 7,000 square feet than the 4,300 square feet that are in question. It's a big home. It's got 7 bedrooms. It really doesn't necessarily work for me anymore. My first concern is the home. My second concern is the neighborhood in the city of Saginaw. I would never do anything that I didn't think was in the best interest of the neighborhood. I would not do it. And if you all believe that strongly, I won't give the house to St. Mary's. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'll sell the house for whatever I can get from it, and we'll all roll the dice who gets there. But my concern is, who's going to be able to maintain that home? The heating bills in the winter are significant. The home is in great shape, but it's an expensive home. I spoke to 2 realtors. Neither of them gave me any hope that the house would be sold for anywhere near what I initially paid for it 7.5 years ago. All that being said, I approached Covenant Hospital and Carol Cottrell, who is a former neighbor, and I said, would the hospital have any use for the home? I want somebody who can maintain it and protect the neighborhood, not hurt the neighborhood. Protect the neighborhood, protect the city of Saginaw. And they were not interested in it. I called Karen. And St. Mary's, the CEO of St. Mary's, John Graham, had a vision. I didn't have an intended use for the home. I asked them what they thought, would they have any interest? And they did. So, and John had this idea about nursing students. I said, wonderful. I said, what could be better than have a group of young professionals living in the neighborhood, getting exposed to the city of Saginaw, and they might become habitants of the city. Hopefully, when they're done with school, they'll come back here and practice, but hopefully they'll have a favorable impression, and it will be good for the city. So anyway, and I respect the process, and I'll respect whatever decision is done here, and candidly, irrespective of what you decide, if the people behind me think this is so bad, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it to them. I don't want to do it to any of you. And this isn't a sales pitch. It's sincere. I want to protect that home because I know how important that home belongs to Saginaw. It is truly one of the landmarks we have in our community, and I want to protect it. And I don't know who's going to buy it. I don't know who's going to maintain it. So anyway, all that being said, I'll respect the process. I'll respect the people behind me a great deal. I asked St. Mary's, I said, I walked into the store, I'm trying to do something good, and I feel like I'm a public enemy. And that's the last thing in the world. That's not who I am. I have customers here. I have folks. I have friends. I don't know all my neighbors. A lot of these folks are customers. I don't want to upset them. It's not that big deal. But I hope we all have what's in the best interest of the neighborhood and part. And candidly, what I'm comfortable with is that St. Mary's is going to maintain the home. And the other thing is, at the bottom line, we got to trust them. And I know they've got some of these options. I would hope that that prevailing competent minds here can and that St. Mary's can give the neighborhood the assurances they're not going to make an adult foster home out of it. They're not going to do anything that's going to deter the neighborhood. And that's, I guess, what I would ask everybody to do. Because, again, I thought I was doing something good. That's really what my intentions were. And so, for anybody otherwise who thinks otherwise, you don't owe me. And thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Garber? From the board? Right. Anyone else to speak, wants to speak, will say in support of the variance requested at this time.
To begin with, I think this is an amazingly generous thing that Dick Garber is offering to do for St. Mary's. I'm sorry, my name is Mark Oberschmidt. I live at 404 South Granger. I'm vice president of the Heritage Square Neighborhood Association. I've had a home in the area for over 40 years. I've had a number of variances over the years. I probably had the first variance when our neighborhood became a historical zone to put siding on a home. A variance is a very small thing. What he mentioned about a foster care home was the fact that anyone, not Mr. Garber or St. Mary's, could buy that home and turn it into a foster care home with no variance. That's just the way it is, and we'd all not want to see that happen. Concern for the home, I can't believe that St. Mary's wouldn't be a wonderful steward of that home, that it wouldn't be taken care of impeccably, which it has been up to this point. I have no problem with medical students. I've run into medical students before. You hardly ever see them. They're either at the hospital, studying, or sleeping. They're wonderful tenants. I would take all the medical students I could get, and their friends. It's a good group of people to rent to. As far as the effect that St. Mary's would have on our neighborhood, I think they would have a positive effect on their neighborhood, as they have the Cathedral District. They've done wonderful things over there. They've been just really good to the Cathedral District from what I can see. The St. Mary's has offered programs for their employees to buy the homes that are close to St. Mary's. Perhaps we could have a program like that in our area, now that St. Mary's would be involved in our area. I think that this is nothing but a win-win situation. If we had a couple people move in with 3 adult children, you'd have 5 people in that home. That wouldn't bother anybody that I know of. We've got 5 people there that are medical students that are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, that they probably offered this to at a reduced price to help them get through their residency. As he spoke, they would make wonderful Saginaw residents once they graduate from this residency, which they very well may. They may well stay with the hospital, and I only see this as a positive thing. I feel there's been a rush to judgment, and I feel the negativity that's been involved with it is something we need to sit back and think about before we reject this wonderful offer. And as you know, I own 8 homes in the historical district. I'm very familiar with the historical district. I love it at least as much as Dick does and want nothing but the best for it. But I think when we sit back and we relax and take a look at this thing, what other uses could be used for, who would take care of it, all the things I've talked about, the fact there easily could be a family of 5 in there. This is just like a blended family instead of a standard family as far as 5 people. And I see nothing but this be a win-win initially and down the road from our neighborhood with our association with St. Mary's. So I have no qualms whatsoever. I'm the largest landowner in Heritage Square, and I feel very strongly that we should accept this wonderful offer and be positive about it.
Thank you, Mr. Obersmith. Any questions for Mr. Obersmith from the board here?
No question.
All right, thanks. Anyone?
Speaking for?
Yes.
I'm Leslie Gregory at 1021 Court Street. Speaking on my behalf, I am familiar with having a big house, and I've seen many big houses on Court Street, 1604, 802. They have been on the market for extended periods of time, and the cost of running the houses are extreme. The houses that I've seen, well, there was another house on Court Street, a large house that took about 2-3 years to sell. The price just kept going down and down until they found somebody willing to buy the house. The concern I have is that people who actually finally get a great bargain on a large house do not have the resources to maintain the house in this condition that we'd like to see that house. And I feel that, well, unfortunately, I did not get a chance to hear about Dick Garber's plans until all of a sudden letters start coming in, and to get information as to what was happening to the house and that stuff, it probably had a big part of why the neighborhood did not see what was going to happen. There's misinformation going around, but there are very good concerns. So I myself would like to see the house in the hands of somebody that has resources, like St. Mary's, that won't, that after St. Mary's is done with it, probably would go back to single ownership or to whatever other variance that somebody would need in order to maintain the house in its present condition. I also see that having students, medical students, would be a great thing, because they're right next to the Saginaw Old Town Society. They would see the best part of Saginaw, the rebirth of Saginaw as it is in the city, and see how comfortable a distance to walk from the neighborhood that we are trying to revitalize to areas that they like to go to. So that is my point of view in favor of the proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Gregory from the board?
No question.
Anyone else to speak for the request?
Good evening. My name is Joe LaPerena. I preside at 1118 Cass, which I just bought in June of this year. As a resident and 2 blocks away from the house, I feel that it's necessary to, I don't feel that it's right for something like this to happen. It's supposed to be for a single family. And a single family is mom, dad, and the kids. No offense to Covenant or St. Mary's Hospital, but, you know, they're
That's all right.
a fantastic thing. I drove by the neighborhood,
They're gonna-
I drove by the house, and I got a thing in the mail. You guys have some tough decisions to make, and the tough decision lays on your hands. I can see that you guys didn't very have much time to look over the decision that you guys are gonna make tonight. I served on a committee like this before in Carlton Township. I know what is expecting. I know what you guys have to expect. And I'll tell you this, I'm not going anywhere, because if this doesn't go through the right way, maybe the city council, maybe it needs to change in the city. And those medical students are in debt, probably. They cost a lot of money to go to medical school. And you guys have a lot of tough decisions, and you guys are not looking face to face at me right now. You guys are just probably like thinking like, what am I doing here? And trust me, if this doesn't necessarily fall through, I'll be at the city council meeting asking for a recall.
All right. Is this in favor, or,
Favor.
okay.
Terry Miller, I lived in the neighborhood for 17, 18 years. I just sold an investment property of mine that I rented to medical students. It was fully furnished for the medical students. I sold it owner occupied when I sold it to a young man that goes to college. I think that a lot of the negativity from this came from lack of information as to what the proposed. I just kept asking questions when I would see the zoning request or the variance request. And I think when you're dealing in an historic neighborhood, it's going to raise concern for anybody, because the neighbors here have fought so hard to bring back this historic neighborhood and get it to where it is today on maintaining it, that I think Dick getting up and speaking about this, knowing more that this is a variance and what it entails. I'm very familiar with the 6-person residential group home. I knew about that. So my question was, why is this zoning different or variance different if they already have this 6? I was questioning why are they even needing the variance to do this then? And so I thought something was under the table a little bit about this. Now it's coming to my attention, no, this is just what it is to preserve this home. So actually I walked in thinking that I was against this, and now I'm thinking that you had the right thinking. And so I guess I'm just being a big enough person to stand up here and say, with the information that's on the table now, I think as long as the exterior historicness of this home is still protected and preserved, that maybe this wouldn't be such a bad way to go. So, that's my opinion.
Any questions, gentlemen? All right. Anyone else in favor?
Hello, I'm Tom Miller with Saginaw Future. We are the economic development agency for Saginaw County, but more recently, the city has asked Saginaw Future to handle all of its community development activities for the city of Saginaw. I had a conversation out in the hall with the budget administrator, so I missed a lot of the conversation that's already occurred. I'm actually surprised that there is such a debate about this issue, frankly. St. Mary's is one of the anchor institutions of the city of Saginaw. They have been a terrific partner of the Cathedral District, spent millions of dollars renovating and salvaging parts of the Cathedral District that were in very bad shape 30 years ago. To me, you couldn't ask for a better owner of one of these historic homes than an institution that has the capacity and the wherewithal to save a structure like this. You know, the city has about 23,000 residential parcels. We just did a big blight elimination plan. We're tearing down 1,000 homes with the latest round of TARP funds. There are probably 750 dangerous buildings in the city of Saginaw that are just residential properties. We have a big issue right now with how do we even cut the grass for the 5,000 or so vacant properties that are in the city and continue to make the city sort of have a bad showing to visitors, to the hospitals, and to the businesses. So, you know, in my mind, this is really not an issue. Central Michigan University and their investment that they've already made on the Covenant campus and the investment that they plan to make on St. Mary's campus has been the most transformational, and I think it will be the most transformational project in the city of Saginaw since probably the MCVI and Garber buildings were built on Washington Avenue. This is what every city strives for, especially in the state of Michigan. Young professionals, educated folks moving in, institutions like St. Mary's and Covenant continually investing in our neighborhoods, moving medical students who are much smarter than I am in the neighborhood. You know, and Stemple, John Stemple and I had a conversation about this. I mean, I live in the city, I should point out. I'm a business owner in the city of Saginaw. I live in the city of Saginaw. I work in the city of Saginaw. I recognize the problems that this city has and the need. I have neighbors in Old Town that I'm not fond of that do things that are contrary to what most of the people in Old Town want to see happen. And I think those people need to be monitored and punished when they're not acting in accordance with all of the zoning codes and rules that we have in the city of Saginaw. But to think St. Mary's would somehow, it just to me is puzzling why we're even having this conversation. I understand that you can make this this variance specific to St. Mary's, and if the building were to be sold and transferred under new ownership, then, you know, that clause would be null and void for the next owner. So I don't want to see any of our historic homes subdivided up in tenement properties where you have, you know, halfway homes or unrelated people living. But, you know, the whole focus of the entire state of Michigan right now is attracting the best and the brightest young, educated people that pay taxes to move back into urban communities. we can't be shutting our doors to the type of people that St. Mary's and Mr. Garber are talking about recruiting. I think that is, I think it's foolish, and I think it's contrary to what we're all working towards. So I would encourage you to approve that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr.
None.
Miller?
Oh, they're not.
You want to speak in favor?
Yeah.
All right.
My name's John French. I live at 133 Lockwood Street, and I sit on the Saginaw Civil Service Commission. I think that a lot of the problems with the whole issue is the word variance, and when you change a zoning law. I was told that if you applied for a special use permit, that it would allow you to do the same thing but not mess with the zoning law. Is that the case?
It's not a zoning change.
Okay, it's a variance. It's okay, but if instead of, I'm all for it. I think it's great. I think a lot of the problem is people are thinking that the zoning is going to change. So would a special use permit help out here? Applying for that?
That would have to be city staff to determine that. It'd have to be something to look at.
I spoke with someone at the DDA, and they said that, you know, it would probably put people at ease more.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Somebody'd
no.
have to, the city'd have to,
Okay.
staff would have to look into it and make a recommendation as they have in the variance case.
Right. Okay, that's all I had. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but maybe under a different title, I guess. Permit, special permit, like put people at ease. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't want to bet on it.
Yeah, it's not. It's attached to you, and then when the property's, you know, sold, then if someone wanted to get.
Sir?
Sir.
Mr. French?
Yeah.
We'd like to hear from somebody else.
Somebody else.
I'm Cheryl Gregory, and I live at 1021 Court Street. And I came here thinking that I was opposed to this based on information that's been traveling around the neighborhood and things I've talked to people about. But nobody who I talked to seemed to really know exactly what was going on and the specifics of this variance. And I feel now that looking at what the alternatives could be for this property, which don't look too promising, that if St. Mary's were to, took control of this property and these third and fourth year medical students, women, were to be there, I think that would be, I would enjoy having them as neighbors, and I would be totally in favor of that. So I don't want Mr. Garber to think that the whole neighborhood is against what he's trying to do, and I think he's trying to do a good thing for our neighborhood. And everybody here, actually, people for and against, are trying to all do what's best for the neighborhood. That's all of what's in all of our interests. So I just want to say that I've changed my mind based on what I've heard today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions you got?
No.
Can we hear from somebody now in opposition to this request? Well, all right.
I'm Randall Shantz. I live at 802 Adams Street. My wife and I, we have lived there actually 1 month shy of 29 years. And while I certainly appreciate what Mr. Garber is wanting to do and what St. Mary's is wanting to do, I have some concerns about the future. What kind of precedent will we be setting that would potentially allow other homeowners of multiple rooms, size, space, et cetera, to do the same thing, to develop a student housing project or something very similar. Okay, we live in a historic district. That home is a beautiful representation of that of a historic area, and we'd like to keep it that way. But my other concern is, quite frankly, more of an enforcement type of an issue. That if a variance is granted with specifications, And if something were to change, what is our ability to enforce that? And as Mr. Miller said, there are, things, properties, et cetera, down in Old Saginaw, down Old Town, and even in our neighborhood, that you can see are in violation of guidelines, if you will, the historic guidelines, in violation of possibly some ordinances. And I see the city has, from my experiences, has had difficulty enforcing those things. At one time, I was on the Historic District Commission, and I know how hard we worked and how hard the commission is currently working to preserve that area. And I hate to see something that would happen, that come along, that would take away from that. I'll give you a good example. We were here many years ago when the county of Saginaw wanted to put in the parking lots where the jail and the courthouse. And they applied for a variance, and we worked with them that evening. I remember having some conversations, and one of the stipulations of the variance is that that area would be landscaped, that there would be some landscaping that would, again, make it more suitable for the neighborhood. Shortly thereafter, evergreen trees were planted all around the block. It was quite nice. Within a year, those trees died. They just were not taken care of, and since then, they've all been cut down. There's no landscaping. And so, again, I do question, the city's ability to enforce when we do variances that have specifications attached to them, the ability to enforce that. And again, we've lived in that neighborhood for 29 years. We love it. It's a beautiful neighborhood. We enjoy riding our bikes, going for walks, et cetera, et cetera. And again, while I appreciate what the attempt is this evening to maintain that property, in a little different manner, again, I really question our ability to keep it that way. Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Now, who was responsible for the landscaping?
It was my understanding that the county of Saginaw.
Okay.
And it was county property.
That's a government entity.
Right.
This is a private.
Well, I'm still concerned about that.
Okay.
Again, nothing against
Okay.
St. Mary's, 'cause obviously they get, their facilities are beautiful, it's well maintained, but if something were to happen,
Right.
if
Well, that we can word in to your liking is what I'm getting at. The situation where they walk away, it can't be this variance any longer.
and again, that would be my own personal concern.
Yeah.
Is that's what we were told that night.
Right.
Again, when the government entity, Saginaw County did that, and they didn't do what they said they're gonna do, and now we're staring at.
Trust me,
parking
we're the
lots.
government, come on.
Yeah, it's not fun to look at the parking lot, I'm sorry.
I agree.
I sit
I
I sit
agree
in my front porch
wholeheartedly.
and look at it every day.
I really agree with you, but that's government and that's not.
Anyone else to speak in opposition? Mr. Fry? Come on up.
I'll lay out my concern very pointedly. I live at 802 Cass Street, which is the block south and east of the property in question. I moved to the neighborhood in 2006 after a failed attempt to buy the Brockway house, which I'm sure a number of you are probably familiar with. And if you're familiar with that property now, it was sold for pennies on the dollar, which I think has been some voiced concerns after becoming a dilapidated property, and now a small fortune's been poured into that property to rehabilitate it. It's the corner of Brockway and Elm, if you're not familiar with the exact intersection. What we have at the house on South Granger here is a crown jewel that is becoming increasingly rare in the city of Saginaw, okay? I can drive down Court Street, I can drive down Washington or Michigan Avenue, I can see that money used to be in town, I can see what money built, and now I can see everything as a business, okay? If the city of Saginaw has any genuine concern about maintaining citizens of prominence, it wouldn't make any sense to turn every property into residential housing, simply because we have a concern, perhaps, which is what I'm hearing, that, well, it's perhaps few and far between of those who can come along and perhaps maintain these properties. But I would reiterate, and I think everyone in the neighborhood, none of us live there with the thought process of turning a profit. You buy the home because you want to buy a large home, you want to live in a historical district, and you want to enjoy the home. Okay, to give you an anecdote here, my wife is also a transplant. She moved here from the Novi area a number of years ago. And when I brought her to the neighborhood, obviously there is a little difference between Saginaw and Novi. We drove past the house on Granger, and my wife said, "Wow, who lives there?" And I said, "That's Dick Garber. He owns that house. He owns the Saginaw Spirit. He owns a number of dealerships where I bought at least one of my vehicles from. As a citizen of prominence, my understanding from this house and the history behind it is it's always been a relative citizen of prominence. And if we allow this variance to go through, the transfer to take place, we're yet taking again one of the few remaining properties where someone of Mr. Garber's stature could come in and be proud to call home. At some point, I look around the city and I say, if I wanted to buy a truly nice house, if I wanted to live here in this city and own something to be proud of, where am I gonna look? I mean, I'm running out of options. This is the crown jewel of our neighborhood. It really is. I mean, there's homes on Court Street which are nice. There's some other homes, you know, farther in the neighborhood that have been maintained to a degree, but this is probably the cream of the crop. And my opposition to this is simple. If we give away this house, which is literally what we're doing here, you know, for whatever purpose, we give away the opportunity to have people like Mr. Garber in our neighborhood. That'll never come back. It'll be gone. The house was not tested on the market. We don't know if there's someone out there, like the person who bought the Brockway house, who says, hey, I want to live in the city of Saginaw. I'll pay what it takes to live there, and I'm going to live there for 30 years because I'm committed. Instead, we want to tout pie in the sky thinking of, well, all the medical students in the world are going to come here. Well, where is that going to get us? This is a single-family residential neighborhood. This isn't a college campus. It was only a few years ago we had gunshots every week running or every night through the neighborhood. I should know, I represent half the people. Okay, I mean, they're 5 blocks down the street from me. I see their addresses. Mr. Bush is probably representing the other half. So I'm asking the variance be denied. This property, we're running out of them. And if it's not maintained, and I understand there's some, well, what about adult foster care? Adult foster care is not going to come in for this property. It's way too expensive. My house was adult foster care. They buy it for cheap, they put the people in crappy rooms, which is what my house looked like, and they maximize the profit. This isn't adult foster care. Anybody who thinks someone's going to come in and run an AFC here is nuts. This is a house for a prominent citizen. It needs to remain that way. And that's why I'd ask this variance be denied. Thank you.
Any questions, gentlemen? Anyone else to speak?
Boy, you've had a lot of opinions here. My name is Vicki Sovey, and I grew up right across the street from this house. It's the dream house. It is. It's a beautiful home. We've owned this house. My parents have owned this house for 41 years, at least. We've seen this neighborhood have many, many changes. One of the important ones was getting rid of all the rentals. We've had numerous houses in that neighborhood that were rentals, that were not single-family homes, and they scare me. They don't belong to us. They're not part of us. In all my years that I belong to all these associations that we have, I've never seen these people come to these meetings and be a part of us, be a part of this neighborhood. Usually the ones that did rent as single families, once in a while they would come and maybe we would meet some of them, but not very many of them. This neighborhood is a historical area, and that is a big historical home in our neighborhood. These families in this area have invested many hours, many hours. I mean, since I was a young child, my mom and dad took me to those meetings, and we had to go to those meetings where they started. It was with the Whaleys and the and the Dorfners and all those people back then that helped to build this association in this neighborhood. There's so much behind this. We have a very united and supportive neighborhood group, as you can see. even in the short amount of time that we got this together. They have a strong neighborhood watch group. This group has supported elders in the area. Some of those names in that I collected, I went house to house and collected those names at night, in the night, to get those names. Some of those people have lived there longer than us, and they're not able to come here and represent themselves. But those people, these families, some of those older people don't come out of their house except for they're sickly. They knew me. I'm family there. Okay, this is a family neighborhood. They work together with police to keep the community safe. They also painted homes for seniors in the past. They've rebuilt our park. We've worked really hard to rebuild that park in that area. They've put up signs, they've planted trees, just to name a few of the things that this group in this neighborhood has done. Bringing in 5 unrelated individuals, and I realize what you guys are trying to do and who you're bringing in, and maybe that might be a good idea, but maybe it might not be for this neighborhood. This, in a few of my mom and dad's house was almost broken into. They couldn't get in because they barred it all up. But they did break off some of the bar stuff and everything and was trying to break in. So I personally went around the whole neighborhood telling people about this. Will these kids do that? Will St. Mary's let us know if something's going on? Will they be a part of our association? I don't know. But that's part of us. We care about each other in this neighborhood. I don't know that 5 unrelated individuals won't bring in more strangers. I know that usually medical students, I've seen them sleeping in the libraries when I was studying. But is that really what our neighborhood needs? In this neighborhood, we know our neighbors, we watch out for each other. When my parents are gone, people are watching their house. But it's just it's a good neighborhood. I know that our community police have been reduced, and who's going to take care of it? And I've heard, part of my question was that this is a beautiful historical home, and who's going to take care of this prestigious house? We'd like it owned by a prestigious family in the community like it always has been, and it's always been well kept. Even when you had it, it was always well kept up. It was beautiful. Allowing this home to change to 5 unrelated individuals will only set a precedent in Saginaw. If this house is allowed to do this, who says more cannot follow suit? We need family-owned homes and people to start taking an interest in Saginaw. This is to improve our city and reduce our crime. We have a national recognition for Saginaw for crime. We have seen the crime in the neighborhoods go down as the homes have changed, and including in the cathedral area. I know crime has went down, and I know our crime has gone down in our areas too. But that's part of our neighborhood watch group. We meet with the police officers and we work with them. I don't know what the zoning will change. I know that this is not changing a zone, whether it will help our values in our homes in the area. I know that this gentleman is moving to Gulfside, and will Gulfside want 5 unrelated individuals living in their homes? I don't know. I know that people that have an invested interest in their home and property, I don't know that they want this in their neighborhood either. I know that we don't really want this. In conclusion, the individuals in this neighborhood would not appreciate this home turned into a 5 unrelated individuals. We would like to see this to stay at a single-family home with an interest in the neighborhood and in their home. We're a neighborhood. The community has rallied around the homeowner of this home and helped his business from shutting down. We've been there for that business. We want him to support our community and keep single-family homes in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned your family's home was broken into.
No, they tried to break into it. It has been broken into in the past.
Were they present at the time?
No, they were
Okay.
not.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Thank God.
Right,
Both times they
but
weren't there.
but that's what we're
The
gonna
first
find
time-
out.
Yep, the first
If
time they did break
if he
into
leaves
it.
the home, you know, you're gonna have a lot of possibility of vandalism.
Well, I know the home has never stayed vacant very long. When Dorfner's
Okay.
left it, the Thompsons bought it. When the Thompsons left, Garber was interested in it. So I know it was never vacant for very long.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else to speak? Please come forward.
no, my name is Nancy Burdick. I'm at 803 Adams, about a block away from Mr. Garber's home. You all received a letter from Mr. Largent, another landlord who is very, very passionate about our neighborhood, turning what used to be rooming homes into two-family dwellings, and now eventually he would like to turn them back into single-home family homes. I would like to make sure that you read that letter from him. However, the letter I have here is from a 15-year-old in our neighborhood who also is very passionate about our neighborhood. And she lives at 221 South Granger. My name is Natalie Ludwig. I am 15 years old, and I've lived in Heritage Square for 11 years. In that time, I've seen the city flourish and crash during certain circumstances. The best way I've seen the city is with single-family homes. The biggest problem I've seen is with group homes, and that they attract violence and crime just like metal to a magnet. They ruin yards and destroy property. This is a historical district. Our homes are very old and beautiful. Group homes have proven to be harmful. For example, a few summers ago, we had 2 group homes, one right next to my family's home, and the other by Otto Roser Park. Both homes were trashed and destroyed. The police were called to those homes more than any other homes in the entire neighborhood. The families have since moved away from our neighborhood, and the houses have been restored. In my opinion, and in the opinion of many other people, single-family homes are the best things for our community. It's the best for them to flourish. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No questions.
No. Anyone else speak at this time?
This is off the cuff. I didn't plan anything. My name is Gail Puchel Ludwig. That child's letter was my daughter. I also live at 221 South Granger. And I would like to say that a lot of people have been coming up here and saying the beautiful home and the charming home that Mr. Garber owns right now, but I know these people, and along with me, we also own some big, beautiful homes in Heritage Square. And they're beautiful, and they're nice. And I'm in a very delicate, bizarre situation right now because my husband and I were looking for a home in Heritage Square, and I wanted that one. And we walked up to the door and knocked down the door, and I sent my husband up there with his business cards, and my daughter and I stayed at the bottom. I said, go ask this man if he wants to sell this house. We're not wealthy people. We're labor workers. But it was something that we wanted. We know how to work hard. We're conservatives. He knocked on the door. I said, sir, you want to sell your house? And the gentleman there went, I talked to 2 realtors and they won't touch me. They won't even call me back. They want nothing to do with me. You want to look at my house? Come on in. And this is before the crash. So he took my husband from the attic to the basement. It took 3 days. Offer accepted. We sold our house in 3 days. And there we are. And we have one of the most beautiful homes in Heritage Square, not by anything that has to do with us or who we are. The house was beautiful. We happened to have bought it. My husband died suddenly last February 14th. He had a brain tumor, and it took him just like that. It wiped him out, and it caught him off guard. There was no warning at all. And now I am the sole owner of one of the most beautiful houses, along with many other houses in Heritage Square. And I don't know what I'm going to do, but you know what I know for sure that I'm going to do? I'm going to take care of it to the best of my ability. And I know I've got good neighbors that are going to help me. And they at least are going to counsel me. And I know I'm going to get ready in a few years, and when the market goes up, or if somebody comes along, I pray, and I believe very heavily in my prayer. And prayer goes along with hard work and faith. That the thing that's going to be the most important thing to me is that I will make sure that that home is sold to someone who has the passion. They don't have to have money. We didn't have any money. We still don't have it. We sure don't have any money now, you know. But people can make a situation work if they want it. And half of us homeowners in Heritage Square, we want our big homes. But I'm going to make sure, and I'm going to move heaven and earth and rally all my neighbors that if I have to get out and sell, they are going to help me, because my home will go to another family. And I pray they're going to be as passionate as we are, and is half of my neighbors. And that's living in a big city. That's a homeowners. That's a city filled with homes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Questions?
Any questions? Anyone else to speak to this issue?
Hi, I'm Cinda Shantz, 802 Adams.
I'm sorry?
802 Adams, Cinda, C-I-N-D-A, Shantz, S-C-H-A-N-T-Z. I don't know if this is pro or if this is con, but I've been thinking about this for several days now. I really believe in my heart if everybody, all the parties concerned, St. Mary's, Mr. Garber, were really interested in making this something that was going to be something we were all going to be involved in. Before I got the little green card that said they wanted to change the variance, that maybe they would have come to one of our neighborhood meetings, which are newsletters, and they're on a website, and he gets a newsletter, and St. Mary's, I don't know if you own it or not yet, tell you the honest God truth, but I know you haven't, you've been living out with your sister, right? Right. So, you could have come to a neighborhood meeting, and they could have said to us, you know, this is something we'd like to do. What do you think about it? How can we make this an easy adjustment? Do you have any concerns? And done this all before I got the little green card. And I'm kind of glad people went on the website and found out that we actually have one, and we do have our concerns. And I feel in my heart that probably it's already a done deal. That's what I feel. And this December meeting is just to validate, you know, what people think is a good thing. But I am just saddened because I've been there for 29 years. We put a lot of money in our home too. We bought our home from Nick Opperman, God bless his soul, okay? And my husband didn't even want to move in there because he said, if it doesn't have a new kitchen, you can't move in, because he didn't want to spend the money on that. But it did have a new kitchen, and so we moved in. And I want to know that that house is going to be maintained not only on the exterior, but the interior. There are Pewabic tiles, the wood paneling in that dining room, and the matching table that goes with it, and the furnaces, and the servants' quarters, and the ballroom where pit and balcony started. All those things are not just important to me, but they're important to the city of Saginaw. And I went to a wonderful New Year's Eve party there when the millennium changed. And I remember Mr. Durfner feeding dog treats to our dog. He would run away from our house and go to his house, and that's a regression of what we're talking about. But I'm just saying, why can't we all sit down and talk about what's going to happen to this house before we make any decision, so everybody in the neighborhood is clear about what's going to happen? Why can't we all sit down and say, this is what my dream is for this house, this is what my dream is for this house, and what our dreams are for our neighborhood and our house, rather than having a snap decision tonight and get real information. Some of us are just getting real information now. And it's caused a tremendous amount of stress in our neighborhood, tremendous amount of stress. Because I thought, if I can't sell my house, I'll give it to First Press. And then they can have whoever they would like to have live in it. You know, why not? You know, it's right across the street. They could use it for a manse. They could bring people in from out of town. They could put up people who were having family troubles and things. You could turn around and get a variance there. So I just think, instead of tonight, we need to sit down as a community. The community you love, the community you love, the community that all of us here love, and have a meeting about this house. I know it's your property, and you can do with it what you want, but to really incorporate it and let us know. I mean, you were shocked to find out there was opposition, and we were shocked to find out there was So, and I know I'm not supposed to talk to you, but it's not that we're mad at you. It's just that it's been not a good thing. You know what I mean? It's like somebody dropped, you know, the hammer on us just because we were there. And I think if we could do that and wait 30 days and have a meeting and all talk about it and find out what really is going to happen and how we can work it out, I think we'd all be happy, and probably there wouldn't be this issue. And I don't know if a decision has to be made tonight. I don't know what the decisions are. But I just think we need to work as a community together on this project, rather than just beat each other up and be sad, and I don't know. That's my opinion. I want us to work it out in a meeting, in a group, so we all have the right facts. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak? Hmm?
Okay, my name is William Ostash. I'm the current chair for the Historic District Commission. And I've been sitting here tonight, and as a commissioner in the room knows, I'm very to what the point is, what the process is. And I understand Mr. Garber's concerns, and I understand St. Mary's opposition and what they want to do. But, and it's harder for me to talk to you one-on-one like this, and I'm kind of with Mrs. Shantz, where I think it's better as a group because I'm one to sit back and process when I hear different things. But I do want to say, out of everything that's been said here tonight, I could go on about this for an hour just based on their comments. They are very passionate. I'm very passionate. I live in the Cathedral District. My house was built in 1893. Prominent family, owned the largest steam bakery in the state of Michigan. Still connected with the great-great-granddaughter of the person that started the bakery, and or actually even built a home. So when you hear the lady here speak about her home and that we all have big homes, it's just not Mr. Garber's home. I know Leslie and Sherry here have a very beautiful Victorian right on Court Street. And there's been a lot of movement in this area to bring this neighborhood back, such as my own home. And part of my role as a commissioner for this city is I took an oath for preservation. So when I hear these things, I want to come out and I want to give my own support. When we talk about preservation, we talk about what is and keeping it intact. And we have to remember this is a local district. So there are going to be certain rules and ordinance under our local ordinance that they have to follow. But they're right. There is a problem with that because right now the city is understaffed. When we file a complaint, or a complaint does get filed, the chances are that the city goes out there and even cites it is null and void because I'm told we just don't have the time. So I've got buildings that are down in Old Town. I can file complaint after complaint, whether I'm a commissioner or a citizen, that these buildings are demolition by neglect. Nothing gets done. So that was one of my biggest concerns when I heard about this. I'm not really so concerned on how many people are living in the house, because you're right, we can have a family in there. We could have a family with 10 kids. But the fact of the matter is, when it boils down to everything, it boils down as to what the law really is. Unless you can stand here and tell me that what I'm about ready to say is wrong, that this is a variance. And a variance, by definition, is technically something to break the local municipality law in order to appease somebody. So I think if you're going to take this route, you really need to write into that variance what that variance holds. And that means if that house is sold, that variance is null. Because otherwise I have to go with Mr. French that this should really be a special needs assessment. And that would kind of lay the groundwork there. But some of the other things that crossed my mind as I heard about this, and I'd like to pose a question to the hospital to even think about this. We have a lovely apartment building sitting down on Jefferson Avenue. We've probably seen some of the renovations that started in the news on that project. That property, as far as I know, I heard by hearsay that it might have sold. But that property is still available as too. It's at 515 or 505 Millard. There's many units could be renovated there, and I see no reason why the doctors couldn't be living in there. And actually, that is one of the things that's come up many a times, and actually in a discussion with Tom Miller Sr., when he attended one of the Cathedral District Association meetings, or maybe it was a local Historic District Commission meeting, he came to us and said, hey guys, commissioners, what do you think we should do with them? We said, let's just kind of sit on it and see what happens. So that's actually an idea I would like to throw out there right now, is why we haven't even taken a look at that. Kind of walking distance, a few blocks from the hospital. In this situation, we're putting students in a very distant location where they're going to have to drive or do something else to make it to get to the hospital. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there as well. And when we talked about a house to buy or something in the neighborhood, I do agree with the neighbors that live in this neighborhood. You're going to want to see that house get sold onto somebody else that's going to love it as much as they do. I mean, I know that I do. I go out and look for things that are made by the family that actually had the bakery. I just purchased a box that used to cart the bread around town in. And so there's a lot of pride when you take back into that home. And like Mrs. Shant spoke here, that even Pitt and Balcony had their start up there. And I can remember I've heard stories about that as well. And when you look at the price of a home, I have to agree with the neighbors who are supporting that are opposing the opposition of this, because one is going to sell a home to that person who's going to have the money to buy it, who's going to be able to fund it. I know what those heating bills are like. My home's 4,700 square feet, and we have 2 people living there. So, and there are things that you can do. You can shut off different areas if that's going to be a cost and if that's going to be part of the argument, which I really don't even think it should be. And so I think that if that home goes for sale, I think a person that is going to come along right away because they're going to want that house, number one, for its historical value and for the house that it is entailing. And that is a huge home and it's beautiful. I guess I really don't have anything else to say. I just wanted to get up here and share with you some of my concerns. And I guess my number one concern is when the hospital, if they take over that property, what are the exterior renovations going to be? And somebody else also made another good point. Not just the exterior of the home and what it looks like, it's the materials that make up that home. Case point, the Hill House over on Jefferson Avenue. Pewabic tile around that fireplace, irreplaceable. So even when the house was open for viewing or people to come in, sir, I'm talking. If I'm that boring,
No.
okay, because I just feel like I don't have your attention and I'm up here giving you mine. Okay, so there was tiles that were around that building that were irreplaceable and they had plexiglass over them to support them. And plus I am here on my off hours. It's almost like a commissioner job is my second job. So, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry about that. But, so I just want to make that point as well. So you also have a lot of things that are happening inside that house that can be destroyed. And then there even can be things that happen to the house on the inside that cause exterior failure. Case point, there was a house right over on Court Street that was given to the church. The gentleman that gave this house to the church decided, hey, I'm going to strip out all of its wood, all of its fabrics, and I'm going to sell it off, and he did. And finally, when he got it to the point that the house was destroyed on the outside, there wasn't really too much that could happen. Somebody threw a motion, the motion was seconded, it went to a vote, and they voted for demolition. That is a sad case. There are certain situations that I sit here as a chairperson, as you do, that when a motion gets made and someone is seconded it, you bring it to a vote. You must. Now I'd like to go back to what they just said here. What Mrs. Shant said is very important, and I think sometimes if I can actually postpone or get somebody to think about it, let's digest it, bring it to the next month's meeting, I think that's very beneficial as well. So I guess maybe that's an option that we could take here too, because it sounds like you've got a lot of people here with a lot of passion, a lot of concern. They're getting answers, but they still would like to talk. Thank you.
Sir? Sir?
I have a question, I guess, both for Mrs. Shantz and for you. In 30 days, are you going to be more acceptable to the change? Or are you also under the impression that, you know, you're going to change everybody's mind?
My personal opinion, I would like to see the house go up for sale, on the market, and sold.
So you say
So
no.
I'm kind of wondering,
Okay.
what's the market
Okay,
value?
that's fine, I agree.
I was saying that at my house on January 11th is the next meeting, is that correct? At my house, I live at 802 Adams, is the next meeting of our neighborhood association. Not only can you come, you can bring a dish to pass, because it's a party. But we have a general meeting, and I think it would be nice if people came and talked about what is going on. We This Tuesday? No, we gotta wait one.
All right, folks.
You can't talk to each
All
other.
I asked
Come on,
was,
let's have some more. Yeah.
I just asked, would 30 days change your mind?
I want to know more about what's happening.
Okay,
And I would
okay.
have liked St. Mary's to come to me, and I would have liked to come to a neighborhood meeting, and we would have known what was going on.
Okay,
And
that's
I
all.
think that's a good request, and then we can have a more educated and more logical approach to this. Right now, it's pretty patient.
Okay.
And I think you could give us till when's your next meeting?
Doesn't matter.
Oh.
You know,
We have a request before us, and we're being asked to act on it.
right.
I know we've worked together on the historical committee. We're doing that Old Town project.
You're from Ann Arbor,
Sat in
correct?
meetings
Mhm.
a couple times, and
Yes.
I guess what is your to me, St. Mary's would preserve this property.
Correct.
Which is my greatest concern. We don't live in 1980 or 1990 or even 2000. We live in 2014, and I feel like we need to be creative in the ways on how we preserve our properties. I own property in Saginaw City. Lived in Saginaw City till this last year. But I don't want to be part of the debate, but what I'm asking you is historically, what gives you pause you're an expert on the historical commission, so what gives you pause that St. Mary's wouldn't somehow take care of this property, both interior and exterior, because I thought they would have to.
Okay, the only thing I have to go off of to answer your question on that is they do currently own a property that's over on Washington Avenue, which is down by the Japanese tea house. And so from what I can see, that's the only thing I can look at right now is that home is being taken care of, right?
Yeah.
When it boils down to, and what I'm going to get to, is the ordinance and the variance process. You are asking for a deviation from current municipality law. And that could stick, and that will set precedents. And I also am bringing another message too from the vice chair who said the same thing. And also from another commissioner on the commission. So I'm kind of carrying three different voices in here tonight because they couldn't make it. So when I sit down in your chair, I look at state law and city law. And what are we doing? Does that answer your question?
It does. Now let me just ask, this house could be put on the open market. It could be bought by an investor, and it could be turned into a 3-unit.
No, it wouldn't.
No.
It can't be.
No, it's in an R1 district.
It can be rented to somebody with 3 people that aren't, as long as there's only 3 people that aren't related.
There could be.
Correct?
What I'm trying to say is when we meet every month and we make a decision, what's on our mind is that we don't set precedents. What's on my mind is trying to drive the meeting in a certain way that precedence doesn't get set. And there has been cases where things have come up for a vote because somebody made a motion. I'm the chair, I can't do anything. I'm trying to drive the conversation up to that point. And there have been some decisions that have been made and voted on that I feel have set a precedence. And I fear for that for the historic district based on what's already happened there.
Okay, this is a question. I'm not going to go to sleep
Okay.
this time, okay?
No, I'm sorry.
But what was the first time that you heard about this project, the Historic Commission? How long ago did you hear about this project?
This project? Probably about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Okay. Now, you mentioned something that I thought was key. The clarification that if St. Mary's goes to sell it, that the variance is null and void.
Correct.
I don't think that would be a problem putting
Neither
it
do
in.
I.
I agree with you there.
But I think it's the variance piece that's got a lot of people up in the air. And that's why I also agreed with Mr. French on this on a special assessment.
But I like the idea of the variance with the stipulation.
And very well, because a lot of times when we write our certificates of appropriateness, that's what we gave you for your building alterations and exterior alterations over there on Court. I think that's something that should be known, and I think that's accepted.
Yeah.
And that's very good. And I was happy to hear that tonight because we do the same thing. We write our COAs with specific instructions. Anything outside of that certificate is now a violation.
Because I don't think either St. Mary's or Dick Garber want to see
No, and
this
this
place
is nothing personal
trashed.
against the hospital or Dick
Yeah.
Garber. I mean, St. Mary's is in my neighborhood. I love having them there. I love the helicopters. I do. I like the helicopters. Some people wouldn't, but I do. Okay. Just had to lighten the
Thank
load
you.
there.
Do you have, confident that St. Mary's would preserve this property in its current state?
I think they would.
Me too.
I just
I
kind
do
of had a
too.
problem with the variance because it is a deviation, but written in a specific way, then you can adhere to our current city ordinances. Correct. And so I might have kind of went back and forth on this, but I'm one of those people that
I like that
kind
part
of
of it.
point out the
Yeah.
facts.
I like that part of it.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there something that could protect, like, the interior significant pieces within the house that's in this variance?
You could write that in too.
Written in there?
No, that's up to the owner.
Right.
I know on the Hill House, they actually protected the tile from one owner to the other by attaching, a preservation easement
Yeah.
for significant parts of the house.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We can't do that.
There's no limitation.
Anybody else at this time?
I thought there was that lady in the back there. She's raised her hand several times.
My name is Jane Ann Zoomer, and I live at 217 South Bond. I support the variance being passed. That's hard for me to say because I am passionate about the people that I live with and the neighborhood and the city. I think that there was a lot of misinformation that was given by some people in regards to it was going to eliminate the R1 status. I don't think people understood what a variance is. And I think that as neighbors and as a community, it makes us sad to see them not be homes for families. I think that what Mr. Garber has done is in the best interest. I don't know why I'm crying like this, because I love where I live. As a community, I brought you a brochure that, I don't know why I'm doing this. I brought a brochure that talks about my neighborhood. It says that we are basically conservative, that Tom Mudd wrote that you can tell by the large houses being built next to small labor homes. The funny part about that is I still think that is today the way we are. I think that at the bottom of this, all of us feel sad that we don't, Mr. Garber would not have a buyer. As hard as you have all worked and we have all worked, we have not reached a point yet where people feel as though they can invest that kind of money. I see St. Mary's being good stewards of this home. I think that Mr. Garber has thought outside the box, and sometimes neighborhoods and cities have to think differently about the places and the spaces that they inhabit. I think it's hard for everybody sitting here. My neighbors are very passionate people, and they have had many struggles. I don't really have anything else to say, but to thank Dr. Thurn and Mr. Garber for their investment. I don't really know why I'm doing this. I appreciate you hearing me.
Thank you.
And I am thankful for your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do have to say something. John Stemple is a friend of mine. I met him a few years ago when our neighborhood was having struggles. I wish Mr. Stemple was here, but he did offer the neighborhood to come and talk to him. And I asked my neighbors to get counsel. And by that, I meant not just legal counsel, but counsel from professionals. It saddens me that they didn't do that, because I think now that there are hurt feelings about that. And I wish that had not happened, but it did. So I think it's appropriate for you to, I think they had 30 days. You had 2 weeks. Okay. it's up to you then. I'm just telling you that I know that Mr. Stumple had offered that conversation. No, Mr. Stumple told me the first of the week when I called him that he had offered a woman, he did not know her name, and I had called Nancy and asked her if she would contact some of the people. Anyways, thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. We need a motion. Hmm? What's that? I didn't hear. Why?
To talk to each other.
Me too.
Hmm?
Okay, go ahead.
What's that?
Go ahead, John.
Did you want
Hmm?
to? Are we going to close session?
No,
Oh,
I don't.
Yeah, we got to.
Well,
We don't have to, but we should.
do you want to? You want to make a motion to go into closed session?
Oh, you can.
Well, we got the Freedom of Information Act.
yeah.
And then come on.
Right.
Closed session here, just to. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion.
Is there,
Do we have a motion? That's what I'm asking. We need a motion. from-
can we legally make a motion to table this for a period of
Not really
time?
table it. I
Can't.
don't think we can.
Postpone.
Postpone?
You can make a motion to postpone.
You can make a motion to postpone.
Okay.
You gotta come up with a
Word.
time period.
Hmm?
You gotta come up with a reasonable time period. A reason.
Okay, when's your next meeting?
Well, next meeting's Tuesday.
Tuesday, next week.
Is the 9th.
Meeting at the Presbyterian Church, right after the holidays, first weekend, will be at Cinda's house.
The 9th is Tuesday.
So the 9th is your meeting, and then another one in January what?
11th at 802 Adams.
Oh, on our regular meeting.
A Sunday.
It'll be a regular meeting.
Okay, our regular meeting is on the 7th,
January,
January.
I guess. Well, okay, my house is in your hands. I'll be the
No,
I'll be
no.
on it.
No.
Did you have a special meeting?
We'll make a motion then.
Well, I'd make a motion that we postpone the decision until the 7th of January,
Our next regular meeting.
our next regular meeting.
Okay.
Could I also, I would like to see a legal opinion about the, how the variance transfers.
Is there support for the
Support.
motion to postpone?
Support.
I support it.
Support.
Is there any discussion on that motion?
And I'd like to see a legal opinion outside of the city about how the variance transfers with the property. If you can have the special conditions on it.
Right.
If you can legally have special conditions on the property. Well, if it's sold or not sold.
Limiting what St. Mary's can do in the sale, right?
I would, I'm going to take this little bit of a month to look into the option of a special use permit versus a variance, and the pros and cons of those things, of those two, you know, there may be another.
Option?
Yeah, the special use permit that people are talking about may be a better option than a variance.
Okay.
But so I'll look into that myself, but then, you know, if there's anybody in the city that can aid in that, you know, that'd be helpful to take this month to, well, yeah, I mean, if we, you know, I'm just an alternate to this board, so I'm in favor of postponing it just because it was kind of thrown at me at last minute, so, you know, otherwise, but I will say that I'm confident that St. Mary's would take care of this property, and that's my biggest concern is that, so.
Okay, our discussion right now is on the motion to postpone. Is there
Right.
any discussion on that? Any further discussion? All right, there's been a motion with support to adjourn till this meeting, till next month's meeting.
January 7th.
Regular monthly meeting in January. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion's granted.